LLMs and coding. Yeah, where anything you build around the model, you have to imagine is a massively depreciating.
But the idea that models change every 3 months and it's like some huge groundbreaking thing.
The obvious solution, right? And I guess for folks like Kevin and I, we could see how much ML was sort of changing the stack and simplifying things. So the idea of building for the future of where the technology is going to rapidly sort of compound and simplify a lot of assumptions was kind of ingrained in us from AV, where we had to constantly rewrite the stack because ML kept destroying like the hand-tuned stuff that we would write. And I think we're seeing the same thing play out in AI, LLMs, and coding. Yeah, where anything you build around the model, you have to imagine is a massively depreciating asset. It's something that at some point you need to ask yourself, is the model going to be able to do it itself? And if your bet is no, you're probably on the wrong side of the equation.
I've kind of resisted learning all the tricks and tips. Like, there was use Ralph Wiggum, use OpenClaw, use Hermes, use this prompt engine, use this scaffolding, plug in this piece, always use plan mode. I just ignored all of that. I just assumed the model is just going to get better faster than I would figure out how to use it. It would figure out how to use me faster than I would figure out how to use it. And so I've just been completely ham-fisted with them. And I get frustrated at them and just sort of, I found myself typing less and less information and doing less and less work as time goes on with the models because I just assume I can brute force my way through it. And I'll throw Codex, Claude, and Gemini at the same problem over and over and just waste tokens to save time. And I think no matter how expensive these models might seem, they're still way cheaper than a human. So I would say just waste tokens, save time. Don't look at the tokens either as inputs or outputs. Just look at your time and look at the final output. And even if they're writing low quality code, which I know in many cases they are, it's not necessarily production quality or scalable code. When the time comes and I want to ship it to production, I'll just throw more tokens at it. I'll say, okay, now go through, look at it, rewrite it, and they're just going to get better every generation.
It's going to happen, but I would note a few things, right? All of these traditional software companies have a number of moats. I think what's going to happen is some of these moats are going to go away, but others are going to stay around, right? The ability to quickly write software, I definitely think that's going away, right? If your moat is we wrote this complex software that no one else can write, like, good luck, you're not going to be able to defend that. But I think folks have customer relationships. Folks have know-how of how the field works. Folks have unique domain knowledge. So I think my advice to all of these folks is obviously, don't be complacent, don't ignore it. Make a list of all your moats and be very aware that some of them are going to go away, while others are going to become relatively more important because they're the limiting factors, and there may also be new moats. And I think those that deftly respond, that lean into the list of moats that are still present, as well as the new ones, will do well. I think those that are complacent, that just delude themselves that what worked in the past will continue to work, they're not going to have a good time. So that is the advice I would give. And
so when you're on this super steep part of the capability curve, and when you're in a period where models aren't very good at anything, you'll feel that, right? Because it's increasing super fast. But the reality is models have sort of gotten good enough at 90% of what an enterprise wants to do. That last 10% is still super valuable. I'm not trying to discount that, and there's a decade plus of technical work to go do to solve that 10%. But the idea that models change every 3 months and it's some huge groundbreaking thing, it's just not true anymore for the vast majority of what the market wants to do. It is true at the very fringe, right? The frontier. In the pure sciences, yes, you can have a material breakthrough where the model from 6 months ago couldn't do it, and the model now can, solving Erdos problems or protein folding, whatever.
But a lot of the thesis is there's a lot of value today and people just need to figure out how to extract it out of the model.
Yeah, and much more, the business is not the model itself. It's actually everything around it.
And so the bet with Claude Code was at some point the model gets good enough that it can just write a lot of the code. And this is a thing that we first started seeing with Opus 4 and Sonnet 4. And Opus 4 was our first kind of ASL3 class model that we released back in May. And we just saw this inflection because everyone started to use Claude Code for the first time. And that was kind of when our growth really went exponential. And like I said, it stayed there. So I think this is advice that I actually give to a lot of folks especially people building startups, it's going to be uncomfortable because your product market fit won't be very good for the first 6 months. But if you build for the model 6 months out, when that model comes out, you're just going to hit the ground running and the product is going to click and start to work.
The other thing is super encouraging as well, because there's a lot of doubt in the VC and investor space about, well, are these companies valuable? Is there IP here? Well, it turns out companies like us and Cursor and others, in many ways, we know how to use these models better than the foundation labs itself. There's a lot of benchmarks showing that, for example, there's a benchmark called Design Arena showing that Replit generates the best designs even better than the foundation labs design tools themselves. And so there's this tacit knowledge in figuring out how to create products on top of foundation models and how to combine the different models. So if you're Anthropic, you can only build products with Claude. At Replit, we generate a lot of the code with Claude, but we do code review with OpenAI. We generate the designs with Gemini. We use open source model for code search. And so this concept of more like of an agent lab, a lab that knows how to create agent from different groupings of different models.
So a society of models, as I've heard you call it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely lots of shortcuts to the frontier. And if you take a super high quality model and you sort of like polish your base model with high quality instructions or answers or outputs from a superior model, then it's true that the model might quickly fit to that distribution. But it's very unclear that they would then be able to surpass.
How to do that stuff, and they're also, I mean, maybe they're more secure and like less urgent than you are at this point in time. But the vast majority of products that any large incumbent has is not staffed by the A team because there's only one A team, right? And so if your product is the 27th priority for Google, it's actually not that scary. You see that like I think organizational physics, the set of things that companies can do well, unless they're really designed to execute on a bunch of different fronts, will constrain people to being really good at, their core areas. And so my starting point is I actually think founders should have a lot more confidence in going after, all of the surrounding things that maybe Google or Amazon or whoever else has a product.
Well, forget. And so with Anthropic, you say that like companies are designed.
If tokens get cheaper,
yes,
why are we not seeing frontier models get cheaper? We all thought that this would be cheaper. This would be cheaper.
Well, right now they're figuring out that all your frontier model companies are value maxing, not token maxing. They're raising money at $1 trillion. At some point in time, they realize, oh my God, where's the next $100 billion of compute going to come from? Financial markets are not going to bear the cost of another $100 billion at $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion because I'm going to need it again the following year. So you say, well, I need to build a sustainable business model which starts showing some degree of gross margin profitability. The only lever they have is to take the fastest growing thing that they have in their portfolio from an economic perspective and charge us more for it. That's where you get the price of tokens from. I think the price of tokens is high. Now, you can imagine if the price of tokens is high, every technologist is trying to figure out how do I make my compute more efficient, right, in the future.